Hey guys, how's it going? Comparing here. Now, I know I made a video somewhat recently, maybe a week or two back, about my new Grim Dawn character. And as you guys know from watching my stream, from watching the YouTubes, I do play Grim Dawn still. It's not the kind of game that I can play all day every day, but I've been having a lot of fun playing it while I'm playing Hearthstone. It kind of makes two games that are a little bit slow paced. Very, very active, and I'm enjoying it. And as a result of me playing it at the same time and grinding all the stuff, I've learned pretty much just everything about the game in its current state, as far as I could tell. And I have, from what I can tell, looking at forums, looking at other videos, looking at what people are doing, by far the most badass Grim Dawn character that I've ever seen. And I thought you guys would like to see how I built it, the reasoning behind some of the things, and what all the stuff is like. And before I get into the character, I want to tell you guys the end game in the current state of the game is something called Steps of Torment. And Steps of Torment has a few levels. It is very difficult, but unlike what I thought originally, it does reward damage because so many targets in that area do substantial damage that you can't really tank. Just moving around, dodging shit, and killing them basically instantly is the easiest way to do it, and this is exactly what this character does. And this type of dungeon requires you to farm components to build a key, and you have one shot at it, one shot per key, and the key is fairly expensive, so you want a character that can absolutely destroy that kind of content. And this is on hardcore. This character hasn't really come too close to dying, especially not at that zone, and I've done it maybe 15, 20 times by now. So, good stuff. Let's get into the character. So this is Lovely Danya. This is a Blademaster, and before I show you guys all the items, I'll show you guys the build. It is very similar to a build that I made in my last character, in the fact that it has Night's Chill maxed, and I mentioned how insanely overpowered this aura debuff is, and well, that is still the case. So it still maxes that one, but it covers much more of the Nightblade and much less of the Soldier. So I'll explain how this works. Just to get the Soldier out of the way, I put 1 point in Markovian's advantage, primarily because the swords that I have each give 1 point to it, and the belt gives 1 point, so it's level 4 for just 1 point. This attack really sucks. I don't even know if this 1 point is worth it. You get 1 point in Fighting Spirit. The reason it shows 2 is because my belt is +1 skills, so everything will be amplified just a little bit. Fighting Spirit, a lot of damage. Cadence replaces your base attack, whatever. Military conditioning. It's important to have 2 points. So if you don't have +1 skills, you should put 2 points in there because the first point is 5% health, the second point is 3% health, and points thereafterwards are 2% health each. And in the Nightblade, it may look a little bit confusing because there's a lot of stuff, but the aura is the same. 1 point Veil of Shadow, 10 points Night's Chill, 1 point Lethal Gambit, 1 point Blade Burst. Even though this is like a cleave, it has 3 targets max, but the amplified version doesn't do as much damage. Just the piercing and the weapon damage is very, very small compared to the actual cleave, but the secondary part doesn't have a target cap. So there's a lot of shitty monsters in this game that don't really have much life at all, and because you're doing so much damage, this little shitty part will kill those monsters, and that's pretty important. Then you get Pneumatic Burst, which is the heal and the attack speed buff at the same time, and I put 1 point in this because, well, 8% defensive ability helps me not get crit, 10% dodge. That's fine. For 1 point, I'll pick a defensive passive like that. This one, it is only 1 point. It does seem kind of crappy, but for 1 point, 8% cunning does actually stack up better than all the other points that you could get in terms of late game character. Blade Barrier is the one that gives you immunity for 3 seconds, but you can't move, and all you do is reflect damage. This ability is really good because it's like your last resort. You used your potion, you used your heal, you're still getting fucked up, and well, what do? You Blade Barrier, because when you Blade Barrier, not only do you kill some monsters because of your aura still doing damage, the Blade Barrier retaliates some of the hits, also some of your reactionary procs from your armor will go off, which you'll see soon enough, but also, because you're immune during a time interval, that time interval is time that your potion and your heal ability are recharging. And sometimes you can do pot, heal ability, Blade Barrier, then you can pot again. I don't exactly know what the pot timer is, but it's not that long, and you can usually get that off. You absolutely max out dual blades. I have 22 out of 16 because I have +1 to all skills, +1 to all Nightblade skills, and +2 to dual blades on each of my weapons, and I use dual wields, so I have +6. Dual blades is really strong because it amplifies your pierce damage, which is primarily from your weapons, and your cold damage is primarily from all the little things that stack up, and your final attack. So this game works largely on like percentages attacks, like proc attacks. So you get some of these because, you know, it's kind of worth it. So you get 10% chance to do like a cleave. You get 10% chance to do like a triple attack. So you do like more than 3 times the damage 10% of the time with your single target. You get another cleave 10% of the time, 5 targets max, whatever. And then you get this badass thing, execution. So execution is absurd. You have to get this to level 8. Right now, it's level 6 plus 2, so level 8. And because the levels dictates the chance that it's used, after level 8, it does no longer increase past 20%. So 20% is what you want. It just does a little bit more damage after that, but who really cares? When this procs on a boss, the boss pretty much dies instantly thereafter. So sometimes you'll see this character, you know, going on a boss that dies pretty quickly, and other times you'll see him go to a boss, and the boss literally dies in like 1 or 2 frames, and we're talking about like endgame bosses, like, you know, huge monsters that take up most of the screen. It looks so badass. You just charge in and they're gone, like it's done, and it's because of this. It reduces their health temporarily, reduces their resistances, which are already significantly reduced. There's 380 weapon damage, which is a crap load, and it does 116 cold. And to get a reference, the 54 cold damage from this aura gets amplified up to about 310. So you're looking at about a 6 times multiplier. So, you know, it's like 700-ish cold damage, and then you have the crit multipliers that don't apply to the aura that do apply to a proc attack like this. This attack can hit for like, I don't know, maybe 16, maybe 20,000. I don't know too much. But it's ridiculous. This is why you get maxed out Nightblade. And I got Ring of Steel just recently. I put 1 point in it, which puts it level 3. Ring of Steel is good because it does just about enough damage to one-shot all the shitty monsters, and it stuns all the powerful ones. This Ring of Steel proc, I didn't think Ring of Steel was very good, but I started looking at gear, and some of my gear that I have, the ones with Ring of Steel procs, which you'll soon see, actually ends up being very, very powerful, so I'm quite happy with it. So let's start with that. Ring of Steel. So I have green gear. Green gear is like rares if you're playing like Diablo. So it has like 1 large prefix and 1 large suffix. And the balanced steel is the one that procs Ring of Steel. So when you're hit 2% of the time, you can proc Ring of Steel. The Ring of Steel proc is much more powerful than the skill level 3 Ring of Steel that I have, but it's still, you know, pretty comparable. And the reason this is really good is when you're surrounded, when you're taking a lot of damage, you'll life leech off this Ring of Steel proc, you'll stun them all, it's like a complete recovery. So I have this on my pants and I have that on my gloves as well, and they're separate proc chances. They have, you know, separate skill recharges, and they proc quite a bit. And when you're using your immunity thing, when you're using your blade barrier, I think it's called, Ring of Steel can trigger. So you can be like immune, and then when you come out of the immunity, the monsters around you are stunned, so it's easy to get away, it's easy to run around, all that kind of stuff. So it's really, really, really good. And the other item that strikes a little bit unusual is these yellow shoulders. Yellow is kind of like the blue quality if you play the Diablo games, but this has really powerful stats, so that's a lot of resist, that's quite a bit of health, and 10% armor is essentially like a multiplier on each of your armor pieces. And in this game, each of the individual pieces of your gear gets hit, so you can see the shoulders are by far the lowest, but overall it just works out fine. I wouldn't worry too much about it. If you find an item that looks crazy, disregard how much armor it has. I put 8 points in physique on this character just so I could use some of the gear that I wanted. I really thought about that a lot. I was thinking about going 100% cunning, but you know, it is hardcore. I did want to be pretty tanky. As you can see, most of my points are cunning. Cunning in this game increases your attack rating, your physical damage, your pierce damage, your duration damage. So, the badasses. I got 2 of these duelet sabers. One has chill aura, which is like a cold damage aura and increases cold damage. The other, the exact same item, it's actually duped, is the piercing aura, which does piercing damage, and that's from the enchantment from that. So I got 2 of those. Those are by far the best weapons. I think if you get like a perfectly rolled green sword, maybe it could be better for this build, but I doubt it. This chest is really important because it gives you a lot of physique, and I'm using, I guess you can see it requires 410 physique, and it has physique. I like gear bugged it by putting points into the soldier talent that gives me percent physique. I put this on, then I spec points out of that. This is a heavily optimized character, basically. But this is really important because Vitality Resist is super rare on gear, and the enchant that I'm using has me take less damage from Undead and Phonics, and those are the two most powerful type of monsters in the game, and it also has Vitality Resist because it's such a rare stat. The Chaos damage is like irrelevant. This is the best chest that I've seen so far. You guys have seen the pants, you guys have seen those items. I use Blood Reaper's boots and cowl. I don't know how slow resistance works exactly, but you guys can see that the 2-piece bonus of 80 health and 5 attack speed is pretty good, and if you've seen boots in this game, you'll know that these stats are also pretty good. The reason you use the helmet is because it has +1 all Nightblade skills, which is absolutely fucking insane. So you cannot give up that helmet. For the same reason, you cannot give up this belt. I crafted one of these badges. This one has Life Leech, which is what I really wanted. I have 6 Life Leech from that, and 8 Life Leech from my amulet. So, you know, that pretty much covers me. You can get a lot more Life Leech in this game and just, you know, don't really care. I use 2 of the same ring. This is a really, really crazy green ring that I got from a vendor. It's very important in this game to check the vendors, and, well, sometimes you get Vitality rings that also do significant damage bonuses, and they reduce Life Leech duration. I don't know exactly how that works, but I know that I leech enough life, and my character is an absolute beast. The Relic slot is the one that's pretty interesting. This is the one item that I'm really missing still. I'm pretty much doing Steps of Torment and farming gear and farming content, all that kind of stuff, specifically to get the pattern for, I think it's called the Slaughter Relic, which gives like 17 Life Leech and +1 all Nightblade skills, which is far better than this one. But from what I could tell, this one is far better than all of the other ones. So this gives cold damage and vitality damage. It also gives vitality resist and cold resist. And I'll explain the resist in a second. And it gives another aura, the Death Chill aura, which gives me more cold damage, more vitality damage, and, you know, all this kind of cool stuff. And also has 15% chance of cold and vitality retaliation. So overall, the character has 6,000 life, which is more than enough. The energy is kind of whatever. You don't really need that much. In fact, the aura from the Death Chill drains 3 per second, which is the majority of my energy regen, but because my attacks use so little, it doesn't really matter too much. The armor rating is actually very high. The offense rating is like standard, you know, pretty good. Defense rating is pretty low, but it doesn't really matter because you absolutely destroy everything. And the DPS is higher than anything I've seen. And this is a result of stacking 2 very, very fast weapons, stacking attack speed, stacking auras that give plus to damage, and stacking items that give plus to damage. And in terms of resists, I think Fire, Cold, Lightning max them all. If I'd have to say, Lightning is probably the least important. Poison Acid damage kind of hurts, but it's mostly like over time stuff, so you can kind of pot that or you can life leech that. It's not really important. Piercing damage is like all little shitty archers that shoot you. The thing is, in this game, most archer type monsters are like the lower base, so they do very little damage. Sometimes there's a lot of them and you get trucked by just a lot of small monsters, but you're not going to get like chunked. You're not going to get one-shotted by piercing damage, so I don't really give a crap about this resist. And bleeding's kind of the same. There are some monsters that do substantial bleeding resist. If I could max out another resist on this character, it would be bleeding resist, but I am pretty happy with where it is now, so I just left it at whatever. Vitality, I think this is the most important resist, even over all the other ones, and it's also very hard to get. Just the kind of stuff in this game that does like ground-based damage, kind of damage that you can't avoid too easily, and it does a substantial amount, tends to be vitality, so I think that is a very, very important resist. So overall, this amount of damage, you may have seen other people in this game with, you know, 2,000-3,000 damage or something like that, but you have to keep in mind that while this spreadsheet damage is like ridiculous, it doesn't account for all the different procs, it doesn't account for the aura, it doesn't account for a lot of different things. So what I mean by that is, you know, let's say when I heal, I get the pneumatic burst. It goes, you know, just to about 4,000 DPS. But that's 4,000 DPS on a target that's also taking the damage of your aura every second. That's also debuffed 50% all resists, and much further so if you have an execution proc, you know, their health is lowered. Pretty much this character is the way you want to build a character to absolutely destroy this game. Yeah. There's not too much more that I can max out on this character, so I don't know how much longer I'll play the game, but I have to say that even though I'm a little bit disappointed, and I've said it a few times by now, by the progress of the game in the last year or so, it is crushingly addictive. So this is where I get to after that. Fun stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys get some of my enthusiasm through and maybe try the game yourselves if you're interested. In any case, I'll see you guys tomorrow.